right. Good morning, Liz. Good morning, Cate.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
Hi, Kate.
Hello.
So
Well, you know
excited to
what?
be here. Mhm.
It's December 1st already. So I don't know about you guys thinking about Christmas, thinking about the holidays, whatever your holiday is. It's kind of like this year's kind of screamed by, right?
I cannot believe we are in December.
Oh,
Oh
it's
my
crazy.
gosh.
It's crazy. So
Yeah.
Liz, you want to get us started today?
I
We're so
would love to get
excited.
us started today.
So,
I'm Liz Kitchell with Shimula. Do a quick introduction. Many of you know me out there. I started in the financial services industry and I was there for, gosh, over 2 decades. And while I was there, I would see a lot of women like come to the table and sit down and say, I want to learn all this stuff about finances, building wealth and obtaining wealth, accumulating assets. But they didn't always stay at the table because they might have felt judged in the process and a lot of different other things. Well, now what we're starting to notice is those same women are 45 to 65 years old and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I've run out of time. I've run out of money. The traditional ways just don't work. I've got to figure this out. But they're also paralyzed as well from taking steps, but they are wondering what else is out there and how to do something different. So that's kind of a little bit of like what I bring to Shimula. Dawn, I'll let you introduce yourself. And, you know, at Shimula, we're really about bringing forth this linear and experiential side of money. So we both bring that. Dawn?
sure. Well, thanks, Liz. So Dawn Parks with Shimula. I come from a very different point of view than Liz. I've been building companies for years, working inside of, multi-million dollar companies, billion-dollar companies, but somewhere along the line, I didn't learn what I needed to learn myself around money. And when I got divorced about 15 years ago, oh my God, it was a nightmare. Stuff I didn't realize. And I wound up having to file bankruptcy. And you talk about it's too late, right? You're approaching 50, it's too late. What am I going to do? And I had to go out and teach myself a lot. So I wound up, in teaching myself and talking to my girlfriends, I learned I wasn't the only one in that age group that really, we just never learned that stuff in school. And unless you wound up getting pointed into accounting or finance, I could run a big business, but I never was dealing with the P&Ls, things of that nature. So I started teaching people and coaching people. And then I met Liz and we thought, well, let's bring our two conversations together, and boom, Shimula was born. And
Right.
yeah, so that's my story and I'm sticking to it. It's actually been it's been a very powerful story. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have completely altered my life. My daughter, she just graduated from college. She has a whole different relationship to money than I ever had because she lived through it. Right.
Mhm.
So now I'm trying to get her out of the scarcity conversation. Like, we're never going to have enough after
Right.
bankruptcy. But,
You
it's
know,
just one step at a time.
I kind of feel like sometimes we have those financial straitjackets, right? Where we really limit ourselves on those financial straitjackets. And we have to realize we're addicted to it. It's designer, it's got all these little things that we've learned to love. And it's removable, right? You can take it off and you can have a whole new eye-opening experience in relationship to money. So, but that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about the Great Resignation. What is the Great Resignation? We are finding women leaving the workforce in droves, either because they're looking for a lifestyle career, they're putting in way too many hours, and they're realizing they're making too many sacrifices in their life to give up for the career. And they want to have it all, but they're trying to figure out how to have it all. And then the other times is maybe, they're just sitting there thinking, it's too late for me to make it big with my company. I have a dream, I have a goal, I have a purpose, and it's time for me to go launch that business, right? And they're jumping. So, but we've all done it. Everybody on this call, that's why we invited Cate to be with us today to share some of her experiences as well of how to prepare yourself for that leap and to be successful. Cate, we'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's great to be here, and I can attest to that financial straitjacket and that leaving the world of finance after 20 years of being a banker to then starting my own company and that scarcity conversation. It's like, wait a second,
Mm.
and self-funding my business. So we can
Yes.
get into that. But
Bootstrapping.
yes,
It's a
and
big
I heard a new for any of the women that are going to listen, and obviously we love our male allies too, but stiletto strapping.
Woo!
Ooh, I love
Yes,
it.
goosebumps on that one.
One of our incredible Luminary members who is stiletto strapping her company. I was sitting in a meeting with her and she said that and I said, "Oh my gosh, that is absolutely so true." And it's even harder, right, as a woman. And we also know that more than 70% of women-owned businesses do bootstrap, stiletto strap. So it's just I love being in that community of women that's doing it, but and we can talk about this, but grass is always greener, and we're seeing so many more women leaving the corporate workforce and starting their own businesses, but preparation is key. A little bit of background on me, as Liz knows.
Please.
As I mentioned, I was in financial services for close to 20 years. I was leading very large global businesses, thousands of employees, multi-billion-dollar P&Ls for companies like JP Morgan and HSBC. And on the side of my desk, like a lot of us do, are very focused on diversity and inclusion initiatives or women's networks. And I was so involved and wanted to do more and just wasn't seeing the impact that we should have had, and that wasn't seeing that many women, more women around the table, or people of color, or underrepresented communities. And so I decided I'm going to do it myself. 3 years ago, left my very stable and lucrative job as a banker, my seat at that table, and decided to create a new table. The company's called Luminary. We're a global membership-based collaboration hub and platform that really accelerates women and our male allies in their professional and personal development. We were founded in 2019, really with the mission to uplift, upskill, and propel women forward through all phases of their professional journeys. So whether they are still climbing the corporate ladder, they're in the midst of their career, they're leaving or have started their own business, they're in transition. And we were 14 months old when the pandemic hit. We were and still are a physical space in New York for women to convene. But the pandemic forced us online in a very positive way. I didn't think it was positive in March of 2020, but we are now have members, including Liz, in more than 30 countries. And we work with both individuals and companies around the world. And with that core mission of advancing women in the workforce. So we have a lot of experience, particularly over this last 20 months or 21 months around the Great Resignation. We've seen it firsthand. We have a very unique vantage point. And I left my job, prior to this whole concept of the Great Resignation. So I leaped before it was in style, and like you guys, and so have a little bit of that background, but then also have a very broad background around what we're seeing around the world, not just with business owners, but those particularly women in corporate that have left, have had to pull back for lots of reasons, and or are making that leap into entrepreneurship.
Well, that's awesome, Cate. So so you've actually been at it for a couple of years now, right? So when you first made that jump, there's some things you learned in that process, right? So what's some advice that you might give to someone who's looking to make that jump? What should they be considering? Because where Liz and I are, we're like, yay, you, go you. We can help you get the resources that you need. But if you're making a huge pivot, right? If you're going from corporate America to entrepreneurship, it's a different conversation than going from one company to another.
Exactly.
And so what are some things you learned along the way that you were like, oh man, I wish I had thought about that first? or some other advice.
I think, a couple of kind of things for me, and it really depends on your own personal situation. So I use mine, right? And it's not going to be the same, Dawn, as yours or the same as Liz. But in my situation, I had been working for 20 plus years, 20 of those almost in banking. I had saved quite a considerable amount of money. I don't have children. I like to tell that to people because a lot of times that is the financial straitjacket is I have children and I'm saving for college. I saved for college for children that I was never end up able to have. So I had this kind of nest egg and said, okay, I'm also frustrated in my job, not necessarily in what I was doing, just again, watching what was happening in the world. And I left, right? So I had this moment of I'm jumping without having a parachute. I did have a
Mhm.
financial parachute to an extent, but so I could take time. I think so if you don't have that, then you really need to look at what that risk is for you and your life, your personal situation, your familial situation, etc. For me, I'm an all-in kind of person, so it would be very hard for me to have a side hustle. Now, lesson learned, hindsight, whatever you want to call it, I actually think I could have worked on Luminary as a side hustle, at least during the business planning phase and getting it set up as a company on the side while I was still working. But the two didn't match. I quit my job because I knew I wanted to do something different. I didn't know yet that Luminary was what I was going to do. So it was about a
Mm.
6 to 8 week where I sort of had that, oh shit, oh my God, I quit. What did I
Right.
do? And you know what I did? I fell back on the recruiters calling me for other banking jobs. And
Mhm.
because I got scared, it was that, oh my God, I made this decision. Did I make the right decision? But recruiters are calling, so I'll take those calls. I don't want to burn bridges. It was in that moment that I started really talking to women in different ways around what they were lacking in their jobs. A lot of women get, and not just women, but I'll use that for this context of the conversation, get pigeonholed. Like, oh, Liz, you're
Mhm.
this. Oh, Dawn, you're this. Kate, you're a
Right.
banker. You couldn't do anything else, right? I couldn't go work at Google. What? Well, why not? I have transferable skill sets. I can do whatever I want. Um, but we tend to just get put in that box. And so as I looked at what was happening in the workforce, particularly for women in the midst, right, of their careers, and this is pre-pandemic, as I was watching the number of small businesses started by women growing to 800, 1,800 per day, women not getting capital, women coming back into the workforce after whatever, parental leave, maternity leave. I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this where we're actually bringing women together, convening them, giving them tools and resources to uplift, to upskill in whatever they want to do. There were a lot of organizations that were C-suite, entrepreneur, very, very niche and very focused. I believe in truly bringing, if you actually say you're bringing a community together, you're bringing them together and you're not creating other barriers to entry. We face that too much already in our lives as a gender. So I wanted to break those down. But for me, it was, I took the leap. And if I go back, it was, I knew in order to do this company, I had to have a plan. I'm a planner, I'm type A, I'm an overachiever. And so, and Liz knows this, I wrote a considerable business plan. I then did my financial projections right after that and realized I could finance it on my own to a point, and hopefully until we were profitable, and we are. But then I needed that plan because then I had levers to pull within that plan that allowed me to say, okay, which direction, how many different what revenue streams within that, et cetera, et cetera. So for me,
Mhm.
it was all about planning and preparation once I made that leap. So if you're in that process and you have that idea, whether you're still working or not, my one bit of core advice is to create a business plan and understand the numbers before you do anything. Oftentimes, if you're making that switch to entrepreneurs, and I hear it every day, well, I don't know my numbers. I just know I need to make X amount of money. It's like, well, how do you know how much you need to make? What does
Right.
that number look like? What if you ever have to raise money? What if you have to go to a bank for a loan? If you don't know your numbers, you're really behind the eight ball, and I never wanted to be that way.
Right. All right. So two things I'm curious about now. So you had training around stiletto strapping. Right? You had already put that work in. So does Luminary? I know we offer some programs around. We call it a bootstrapping program. I'm thinking if I can steal that, the stiletto part, that would be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Or high heeled strapping or something. Anyway, so but not everyone has that. So that often stops them. Do you have programs where women can get that kind of stiletto strapping training or business planning training?
Oh, absolutely. I personally teach that every single month. I think it's so important. And as someone who wrote the business plan, and by the way, continues to revise the business plan, we had to do that
Right.
when the pandemic struck. It's not a document that just sits in a drawer and you never look at it again. Absolutely. So we have everything from that business planning boot camp to financial planning to social media to legal, right? So every function of your business that people often underestimate, oh, that's something that I don't need to focus on right now. Uh,
Right.
Operationalizing your business, hiring. We do different workshops on every part of that business planning process, but I recommend people start with the business plan because while it seems super overwhelming, once you start, and even if it's a condensed business plan, these don't have to be hundreds of pages. They
Right.
are your North Star. And then your next component is your financials, right? And that becomes even scarier because you realize you may have a cash flow issue, you may not have any cash flow. And then we also do a SWOT for starting a business, right? So if any of you have worked in corporate America, we often do that as for projects and new businesses. Why not do that for your own business and really identify the weaknesses and threats that are present, but how you mitigate against that with those opportunities and strengths. And that's why you're building that business, no one else is.
Very cool. Yeah. So having a plan is great. And I love this idea that we have this goal, this dream, right? But it's kind of like imagining going to Hawaii,
Yeah.
right? You imagine going to Hawaii, but then you hit the ground in Hawaii and you're like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Now I got to figure out where I want to go and what I want to do now that I'm kind of entered into that world. So flexibility is really critical. And knowing the experience you want for yourself and your customers or your clients is just as important, not just Hawaii. It's like the experience of Hawaii, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about it. It sounds like you have something, a strategy that not everybody has. Like I'm a jumper. I'm a maverick. I love to take risks, and then I figure it out, right? That's just how I go. But it sounds like you have this thing like no back door. That's what I would say. Like you didn't give yourself a back door,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
right?
This
So
was, yeah.
say a little bit about the value of not giving yourself a back door. And for you guys who are listening, a back door meaning I'll just go do this other thing instead if I have to, or I'll keep, I'll have a side hustle if I have to. How is that experience for you?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to I think our personalities too. I've I've always been a risk taker. Now, take that with a grain of salt. I've worked for three of the largest banks in the world for 20 years of my career, so I always had that safety net of hopefully I'll still have a job. I was an excellent performer, blah blah blah. I had a great reputation, all of those things. But I took risks within my career. I moved to multiple different countries, different banks, different lines of business, and always said, I'm going to figure it out, right? I'm all in. I will listen. I will learn. I will figure it out. And I'm going to ask for help and support when I need it. And
Mhm.
I think that was one of the reasons, the very big reasons I was successful in that career. And, I always tell this, never say never. I loved what I did. So doesn't mean Luminary is going to be forever. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't, but I can always go back. And I think, and I talk a lot about, when I think about all in and not the back door, the 4 R's I've been speaking a lot about lately. The 4 R's are reputation. What is your reputation in the industry, in the market, even within your network? What
Mhm.
are your results? Do you have proven results, right? That you can talk about when you're thinking about whether it's going to a new industry or starting a new company. Your relationships, right? What is your network? How big is that network? Who can you tap into both internally and externally? And your resume, right? Whether you're a newer professional or you're 30 years, 40 years, whatever that number is into. What does your resume look like? Meaning, does it speak for itself? If you handed that to someone and just talked about your bio, right? Are they going to say, "Whoa, I love what you've done. I want you to come work for me," or "I'd love for you to be, you are the person to lead this company if you're starting your own." So for me, the back door just never existed. I am a back me against the wall kind of person, I'm coming out swinging. I am a failure for me doesn't exist unless I give up. And I'm just not someone that gives up. I could have easily in March, April, May, June, actually any time during this pandemic, have said, you know what? I have a back door. It's really hard. I have a physical location in New York City. I'm building a membership community. The world has changed. I have a ton of overhead. I'm out. But just like we do in our careers, just like I'm doing in entrepreneurship, I know I'm having impact. I know my business plan is solid. I see our opportunities and our growth. And yes, has it been a little bit like this? Of course, we're in a pandemic. We've never experienced this. So that is my personality, but it doesn't happen just because of me, Dawn. I tap into every part of that network for support. And also when I feel like it's not just there's a trap door versus a back door, reinforcements, right? I'm ready to go through the trap door. No, you're not. Come on, you're going to keep going forward. And I think that's this, you don't underestimate the power of a community, whether it's a community of 3 or a community of thousands. You have to tap into that. Whether you're a backdoor person, a trapdoor person, or just walking through the front door. That is just my personality. And I there's not much more else I can say about that. It's just
No, it's great.
going forward.
No, I think that's really important. And, one of the things, so generationally, things have changed around women. So there's a lot of, I grew up in a world where we women, my mom was one of the first women working, right? They were nurses, they were teachers. Sometimes they went on and became other things, but that was it. But they were the ones who were trying to work and be moms and kind of hold the family together. And then my generation, which is about 10 years older than Liz and probably a little older than that from you, is that then we had to go out and get better jobs, bigger jobs, make more money, prove that we were really strong and powerful, and the backbiting and the cat scratching. And because now I'm competing with all the men and all the women, right? There was community did not exist.
Right.
And so this whole notion of community, especially now, I'm starting to see more women of my generation who are interested in community, but still a little bit scared, right? Because they're afraid to share their ideas that somebody might steal them, right? Or be vulnerable. That's why they're not asking anything about money, because they don't want to look stupid, because that was part of our generation. Don't look stupid, just go do it and figure it out. So we were never allowed to ask for help, because then we would look inferior. So, but I know that part of what you do at Luminary is really built on this notion of community. And we just really are firm believers in that. So I would love to hear more about community. How do you, like if someone is, in Akron, Ohio, let's say, right? They're in Akron, Ohio. They're not necessarily part of a big community. How can they build community where they are? Any ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. And I, I'm a Gen Xer, and my mom was a teacher, my dad was an FBI agent, and there was, as a Gen Xer, I am a milestone person, right? This is the next step. This is the next step. This is the next raise. Da, da, da. That's fine. That is still me, right? That is still me building my own company. I have a path forward. I have to hit that plan. I think, when I think about community, and I tell this to my team all the time, their younger team, I do have some, sort of, as we say, adults, we're kidding, but adults and kids. Asking for help in whatever you're doing, whether you're thinking about the next step, it's money, is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. And we have to dispel that myth about the old days, right? We can actually collaborate versus compete. And by the way, there are still the mean girls and there's still the sharp elbows, all of that. But the more we combat against that and band together, shoulder up, link arms, then that goes away, right? And that doesn't just go away for men, it goes away for those women and the bad actors in general, because it's both genders. And community for me, if you're just starting, it's literally calling up someone in your network and you're a friend and saying, you know what? Do you have a friend? Do I have a friend? Let's get together for coffee or for a cocktail and let's just commune, right? It sounds very simple, but a lot of people don't want to do that. They think, oh, people don't have time. I'll give you anecdotally a great example last night. So a few weeks ago, I was with a friend of mine at Goldman Sachs. We were going back and forth on email. How are things going? And we're like, why are we doing this on email? Why don't we get together for a cocktail in New York? Great. We're both very busy. And then we said, wait a second, why should it just be the two of us?
Mhm.
It turned into 15 women last night, all in different stages of their career in finance. Some have left finance, some are thinking of the next step. And it was 2 hours of little conversations, bigger conversations. And honestly, as every single person left that chat last night, it wasn't a huge, we had some people stay for a half an hour. It was like, wow, this is easier than I thought. And these are really senior women that can be doing that every day. So whether you're just starting out, and I hear that a lot from new professionals, like, I don't know how to network. You
Great.
just have to start somewhere.
Mhm.
And for me, it's also all about how can I help you? How can you help me in a very
Right.
relationship oriented situation versus so often community is confused with that networking component and I have to do it and it's icky and awkward or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Think about it only in I want to build new relationships.
Mhm.
That's how I think of a community. It's relationship building. It's one to one to few, one to many, one to infinity.
Mhm.
That's really great. And I think that's really good advice because we used to do a lot of that a few years ago before pandemic hit. You would still gather with your people. And I think for those who might be a little bit shy or have the conversation called everybody's so busy and the notion of just picking up the phone and calling someone, well, let me get on your calendar. Let me see if I can get on the calendar. It's like, just pick up the phone. If they're available, they're available. If they're not, they're not. Like you said, why are we doing all of this over email? So I think it's such a great, to support people in that first step is amazing. But you know what I just noticed? We are on, it's 11:28 already. We have like screamed
I
through
know.
this half an hour. So I'm
Always
going to
goes
let
quickly.
Liz wrap it up on our end to say a little bit about some of the courses. Cate, we're going to be putting the links to Luminary into the live chat so that when people come back and look at it, they know how to reach you and to learn more about your programs and your community, because community is so important. But I just want to say thank you so much for helping us kick off December and this really important conversation about the Great Resignation. So thank
Well, I
you.
want to thank you both. And Liz, I was saying earlier, I've known you now over a year as part of Luminary, and you are a true luminary. And what you and Dawn are building with Shimula is not only helping, it's going to create impact for generations to come. Dawn, you mentioned your daughter.
Mhm.
And so I'm just delighted that I could support and be a part of it in a small way and excited to see what else you guys do and really just honored that you even asked.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. And make sure everybody, we believe community is extremely important as well. When we left, each one of us, to go and start our own thing, we were out there on our own. And you would not believe the conversations that happen inside of your own head sometimes when you're by yourself,
It's a
right?
dangerous playground. Your
It
brain
is
is
a
a
very
dangerous
dangerous.
playground.
It is so dangerous. So, that's why it's really important, not only that we build a community where you can be supported and you can brainstorm and think outside of the box and also, look at things from a different set of eyes and perspective, because we've all been trained in some way, shape, or form, especially me in the financial world. Cate will resonate with this. Here's the linear logical way to do it, right? But there is also this brilliance that comes forward with the visioning, the experiential, and the other side of doing things, right? And there's a dance that can happen and occur when you have a couple of things defined. And this is why we hover here. We hover in the space of figuring out your North Star, right? So you have a guiding light through this process. Then you figure out a yellow brick road, what you know how to do and what you don't know how to do, because many people get paralyzed by what they don't know how to do, right? And then you figure out what's enough. So you know that you can take the leap and be prepared and you have the support. And we do it in community because one, it's more fun, but two, you can get redirected all the time to your North Star, because it's so easy to get paralyzed when you don't have some of those things defined, or when you let some of the naysayers outside or in your own head speak up too loudly. So that is what we're here doing. We're here to support all of you. We do it individually, we do it in masterminds, we do it in workshops. We meet you where you're at and we help you through the process. So Cate, thank you so much for being here. Dawn, thank you again for creating the space. Is there anything else that we would like to say before? Okay.
I think that's it. Thank you so much. And we'll be back here again tomorrow. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us in our Facebook site. And we're trying to figure out how to put all this on LinkedIn as well. But thanks, you guys, and have a really terrific Wednesday.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Happy holidays to you.